Okay, we're going to be looking at South America this time. We finished up looking at Mesoamerica, and now we're moving south. We're going to be focusing on this area of South America, which comprise three different environmental zones. You probably know that this mountain range that goes all the way down the Pacific coast of South America is, of course, the Andes, one of the longest mountain ranges in the world. Over here on the east is the Amazon rainforest. And then between this narrow strip between the mountains and the coast is one of the driest deserts in the world. We're going to see how these different environmental zones impacted the people who live there, and how each of these societies had to adapt to their specific environment. All right, well, why do these environmental zones exist the way they do? Well, a lot of it has to do with topography, but also the wind directions. So the wind is coming mainly from the Pacific, and it's coming from the west, bringing up moisture from the Pacific Ocean. It bypasses the coast, hits the mountains. Most of the rain ends up on the eastern side, falling on the Amazon area. That's why it's very, very lush and tropical. Some rain falls in the mountains, but there's no rainfall on this coastal strip. The only water that's there is from rivers that crisscross the mountains and empty out into the Pacific Ocean. Right? So that narrow strip between the mountains and the ocean is one of the driest deserts in the world. You get almost no rainfall there. You can see this is what some of the desert looks like. So people in ancient times in South America could mummify their ancestors just by placing the bodies of their ancestors in the desert, and the environment would take care of the rest. So how did people live on this environment? Well, they could live along the rivers. We're going to see that comes into play, especially later on with the Moche. But earlier, we think that based on the archaeological evidence that there was a lot of food that was acquired from the Pacific. So aquaculture. The fish were in such abundance that people could generate a surplus from fishing. And in ancient times, they used, just like they do today in South America, these kinds of rafts that are made out of reeds bundled together. Right. If you go up in the mountains, again, you have rainfall, enough for agriculture, as we're going to see, but you have other challenges in the mountains because it's a high altitude environment, and the temperature could go down very, very quickly at night, and that posed some serious challenges for the people living there. You're looking now at Lake Titicaca, which was an important area in the mountains. We're going to see some of the early states that emerged in the mountains. Okay, so one thing that you're going to notice, and that you'll kind of, I think, pay attention to as you're filling out your study guide for our fourth quiz, is that complex societies appear at different times on the coast versus the mountains. And in general, the earliest complex societies appear on the coast before they appear in the mountains. The earliest state societies also appear on the coast before they appear in the mountains. So things tend to happen first on the coast, and then we later see it happening in the mountain regions. The first complex society in South America appears on the coast at a site called Corral, right? So here you could see the mountains, and here's the actual coastline. And this is that narrow strip that is a harsh desert, but you could just see how narrow it actually is. Okay, what was discovered at Corral? Well, archaeologists discovered that really at the same time that the Egyptians were building pyramids in Egypt around 2600 BC, you had stone pyramids being built in South America. They weren't as large as the ones in Egypt, but still you had these very large stone monuments. You can see some here and some of the other buildings. This large complex centered around a plaza. It looks like this was used for ceremonial or religious purposes, which is not too surprising. We've seen many societies where the monuments that are built early on are religious in nature in some respects. So all of these look like they're religious monuments. It's a little bit like La Venta that we saw with the Olmec. Another similarity to La Venta is when they excavated this area, they realized that there was not a large year-round population. Right? That is the kind of population that you would need to build these structures and support the society was not living here all year round. This was mainly ceremonial. It was mainly a ceremonial complex, and a large numbers of people would come at different points of the year, what we think are on pilgrimages, and give surplus labor and surplus food to help keep Corral going. So Corral was a ceremonial complex more than a residential complex, a lot like La Venta. And the same thing can be said for the first. So before we get on to the next society, I should also say that based on this, like La Venta and the Olmec, Corral is a chiefdom level society. It's not a city yet, nothing the size of a state, but obviously larger than a big man society. So this is most likely a chiefdom. And the same could be said for the next complex society that appears. And this one appears in the mountains, and it's Chavin de Huantar. So we're going to stop this video for now. And I have a video from that series, Digging of the Truth. I edited it down from 50 minutes down to about 15 minutes of the parts that I would like you to see. So watch that next video on Chavin, and when you're done with that, we'll summarize and kind of recap what was going on there at Chavin. Okay, thanks.